You there?
Yep.
Yeah, so so let's just do it. If we can get him on, that'd be great. Get it over with. He said I'm in the gym training. I'm like, then you shouldn't have made it 7 o'clock.
Well, I mean, I don't want to
get. No, he's saying he's done training now, but he was training. How did Hooch do at the apartment the second time around? Same thing.
He was good. He's been good. He was better about not like barking or really growling at people walking in like the hallway and the stairwell, which is good. Jordan looking for another really long like run.
Yeah.
And he blistered up his paw. And then he started licking and picking at it, and his bottom of his paw and the front paw was all bloody and red by the end of it. But he was good. Other than that, I mean, he was pretty solid. He's getting better with other dogs. I mean, he's still, kind of growling at him a little bit, but we're getting him to sit and be kind, try to calm down.
Yeah, well, he'll get used to it the more he's,
the
more he does it.
Well, yeah, and when Jordan takes him for his long walks and stuff, and when he's like out of breath, he doesn't even bother the other dogs. Don't even look at him. It's just when he's fresh out of the gate, fresh out of the apartment.
Come on, dude. There he is.
Hey, how you doing, Benny?
What's up, Benny? Can you hear us? I can't hear you. What's up, Dave? Can you hear him, Trev?
No, I can't hear him.
He's connecting to audio, it says.
How you doing? You hear us?
What's going on? Yeah, I can hear you.
There you go. There you go. What's going on? Is that Dave over there?
Yeah, it's Dave with me. He's sitting in the city. We still at the gym.
Yeah, it's all right. Working it out. There you go. Who are you training tonight?
Omar, Jeffrey. I have little Brian, all the amateurs here. Still there's a lot of people still in the gym. Had another one of our fighters. We just had to talk with him to get him straight. Yeah. We're gonna be talking with quite a few guys.
Yeah. I'm ready. Yeah. Well, listen, I appreciate you jumping on here with us. You've got an interesting background, interesting story, and we love to kind of tell it to our audience. Just give you a little background here. So we set this podcast up to kind of talk to the younger audience and tell them what elite athletes have done to make themselves elite, right? The mindset, the training they went through, whatever little secrets, whatever secret sauce we can give them that they can take and make their own, so they can kind of get to that level too. And anybody who's a three-time world champion has got some secrets that they can share.
Oh, definitely.
Right?
Can't give them all up, but now.
Yeah, no, don't give them all up.
Now I can because I'm retired.
Yeah. It's like I tell my kids, I'm like, by the way, that's my son Travis.
Okay, nice to meet you, Travis.
Nice to meet you too.
Like I tell them, I taught you everything you know, but not everything I know.
Exactly.
So we keep that right there. So I think we'll just start with, like, if you could take us through kind of like how you got started in boxing, kickboxing, whatever, and take us up through your kind of career, and then once we get through with that, we can take us to kind of things you've done with coaching and training and where you are now.
Definitely.
And we'll ask a bunch of questions about just, your mindset and how you prepared for a fight, and things like that. Cool?
Okay.
All right. And then, so start with this, how'd you get started in kickboxing?
Well, how I got started in kickboxing, I've been doing karate for since I was 5 years old, and I was boxing since I was 5. And then I started going to karate tournaments, and I started implementing my boxing more like kickboxing, because I used to watch Chuck Norris, Superfoot Bill Wallace, all the legends fight, and I always wanted to do it. That was back in the 70s. So I was watching, I always wanted to do it. So my old mentor, Bill Curtis, asked me, was I putting my hands together in the tournaments? And I said, yes. I said, but the only problem is I'm getting disqualified a lot. He goes, why? I said, because I'm knocking guys out, and you're not supposed to knock them out. It wasn't full contact yet. So I was like, I'm losing a lot of money. He started laughing. He goes, well, then maybe you might want to go into kickboxing. I said, you know what? I want to try it. And the funny thing is, one of my best friends, God rest his soul, he told me they had a kickboxing match down in Norwalk. And one of his friends was a firefighter, and he was fighting that night. So I went there, and I ended up having to run into one of my old karate instructors. And he was like, I'm laughing at all these guys fighting. I said, I'll beat these guys up. He was like, really, Ben? He goes, I'm going to get you a fight. So he got me one fight, but I learned something big from that fight. They set me up bad. Like, they told me the kid had 3 fights. I found out he had 15 amateur fights and like 12, 13 pro fights.
Wow.
And I knocked him out in the first round. And then I kept hitting him. I woke him up, and then he beat me up the last 2 rounds. And I couldn't finish. I ran out of gas. My biggest lesson for that fight was I had nothing in the gas tank. I ran out because I went off of that old saying when we were younger, like when they tell you go swimming, don't eat before you swim, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I didn't eat. I had 2 pieces of chicken that whole day, so I had nothing in the tank once the first round was over. So it taught me a big lesson that day. Also, the other big lesson it taught me was you can't trust everybody in this game. I said, when you first get in. So from there, I went home. I started running 5 miles a day, hills, everything. Plus, I played football and basketball, other sport. No, the karate was my base background, but that helped me with other sports. But when I got into kickboxing, I trained for like 2 months. Then I got a call to turn pro. And I was like, I panicked. I was like, oh my God. I said, you guys serious? I only had 1 amateur fight. I said, shouldn't I have like 15, 20 fights before I go to pro? And they was like, well, the opportunity here, it was to go to Canada and fight a kid that was 5-1. So long story short, I took the fight. And the kid dropped me in the second round. I came back and dropped him. Then he dropped me in the 3rd round. And I came back in the 4th round, put a beating on him. And I brought the fight back close, and he beat me by a split decision by 2 points. So the craziest thing of that story is I laugh every time now because my head coach, my first amateur fight, I fought his fighter.
Oh,
and
really?
Then he became my coach. And he's like my dad now. So 28 fights later, I end up winning. Like my first year, I won 1 world title, and then probably by my 6th fight, I won another one. And then I went on a 9 winning streak. I was knocking everybody out within 3 rounds. I was not playing around. But what changed my whole mentality was that first fight. I didn't like the feeling of knowing what I can do, and I couldn't do it because I had nothing in the tank. That was my number one thing right there. And then I started running. Once I started running, I got real, like the cardio was up. But then I started training with 10 world champions. My coach was the middleweight champ of the world. And the experience that these guys was giving me was out of this world. It was like, I was getting beat up every day. I traveled from here to Elizabeth, New Jersey just to train, 1 hour and 20 minutes. And my thing for any fighter, any competitor, any sport, how bad you want something, you have to go after it. Nothing should get in your way. Nothing. It's how bad you want it. I stopped drinking when I hit like 25. I didn't drink for 9 years when I fought pro. I didn't party. I ain't say you can't have a social life, but I eat, sleep, kickboxing. That's all I did. I studied every fighter that I had. My coach used to give me, back in the day, we had the VHS, and we don't have the CDs and the digital now. So I used to come home with like shopping bag full of VHS, and that's all I would do all day. After I trained, I'm in the house watching. I would train my kids, play with them. My son, my daughter sit right next to me. Daddy, who you watching? I'm watching this guy. This the guy I might fight. So, I learned a lot, but once I retired from fighting, I started coaching kids. And when I retired, I had to realize the biggest thing that these guys are not me. So I got to watch how I train them, because I used to push myself to the limit to where I throw up, I want to pass out, I'll do something. But those are things you got to do. What people don't see you doing shouldn't matter. You got to do that consistently all day, every day. A lot of these guys nowadays want to put stuff up, post stuff, and they want to see, look what I'm doing right now. Look what I mean. Look at me. They're hitting the bag. I'm going to hit the bag no matter what. I don't care if you're looking at me or not. It don't matter. I used to tell all my fighters, show your skills in the ring. They shouldn't have to see it on a video, because if I said, in this day and age, if I was still fighting, I said, half of you guys to get knocked out quick. I said, you made it easy for me to study you. I said, I don't study your bad habits. I study your good habits. That's what a lot of fighters don't do. A good habit you won't change.
So
a bad habit you will.
So you took us through a long way there, right? When you got started, when you were young, like, and the mentality that you just talked about, did you have that from the beginning? Like you started doing this when you were 5 years old.
Yeah.
Did you have that mentality? And if you did, where did it come from? Where do you think it came from? Just inside of you, or was it?
Actually, I can tell you exactly where it came from. It came from my family and my godfather. My godfather was the one who taught me karate. But he taught me one of the biggest lessons, because when I won my first world title, I gave it to him because I thanked him and my cousins. What they did to me in karate took me to any sport, any job, anything. He told me, just because you're my godson, I'm not going to treat you special. He go, if I tell everybody they got to do 50 push-ups, you got to do double what they had to do. And I used to get mad because I'm like, why I got to do double? He goes, you want to make it triple? And I'm like, no, sir. So he instilled that hard work in me from the beginning. And I knew I can push myself past that pain thrust sometimes. Some of these guys feel pain and they back off. I just finished telling the kid just now, pain is your friend. Pain lets you know you're alive. So you can keep going. I said, people do different things when they feel pain. Some people back off, some people go. I said, I was one of those person that go for it. So to me, it was my godfather who instilled it to me in the beginning, him and my cousins and everybody in the karate class, because they never played nice with me. As a little kid, 15 years old, I was sparring with grown men, 20, 30, 40 years old. I was dropping these guys. And they would drop me, and I would get back up and keep coming. They would go talk to my godfather and be like, this kid is tough. My godfather goes, yeah, he can't cry in the class. Not saying I wouldn't cry. I would go in the back room and hide, then I would cry and throw water on my face and come back out and be like, act like nothing happened. And they would look at me and laugh, and my cousin would be like, I know you wasn't crying. Said, no, I wasn't crying, but he knew I was crying because, dude, you're getting hit by a guy that's 35-year-old grown man, like your size or my size, hitting a 15-year-old kid, you're going to hurt him.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, so
you had that toughness kind of from the family, right? They just
definitely.
They trained it into you early.
Yes.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So I was gonna say, so Benny, you said that, I think you said you won your first world title in your first year. How did your mindset evolve after that first year? Because obviously it's still a relatively new sport. You've only been doing it a year. You get to that peak. What did it look like after that? Was it more, I have to keep up what I'm doing, or I need to completely elevate this whole thing to another level and be even hungrier?
I had to be hungrier and elevate it even more, exactly like you said. That's what I find a lot of problem with a lot of champions. Just same thing I told Mike that he just won the title is you got to stay hungry, because guess what? Like you wanted that belt, everybody wanted that belt. So I knew I had to be, I always went to every fight. I said, I got to bring my triple A game. I don't bring an A game. I don't bring a B game. I got to bring a triple A game, meaning if you coming in an A game, I'm coming triple A all the time. I got to push myself like I don't have those belts. And that's what driven me. I had a lot of people tell me that I'm very humble. They're like, dude, you don't even act like you're the world champion. Even my world champion, my light heavyweight and my lightweight, both of those guys hold 6 world titles. And they both said the same thing to me. They're like, dude, stay humble, but stay hungry. And that's what kept me driving. I was like, yo, I love this. Plus, I was living my dream. That was the number one thing. I always wanted to be a kickboxing world champion. And once I got to that title, a lot of people ask me to this day, how did it feel? I said, I couldn't explain it to you. it was like I was on cloud nine, just like it wasn't real. That's how it felt. It didn't feel real. It took me 6 belts, and I was sitting in my living room one day just watching TV, and my son left, and I'm just chilling, and I'm watching TV, and all of a sudden I look over and I see all my belts. I'm like, holy cow, I'm the world champ. I did it. But then I said, you're not done yet. You still got to defend these belts. These guys gonna be hungry. And I know a lot of times I realize these are younger guys that's coming at me, not older guys. So I gotta definitely my cardio's gotta be up, everything. I gotta push myself just like I didn't have these belts.
Yeah.
And that's what I stress to any world champion out there. Just because you won the belt, don't go partying and doing this. If you didn't get hurt in that fight, you should be back in the gym that Monday or Tuesday. If you're gonna take your week off, take your week off, but get right back to training. Because guess what? You can lose that belt fast as you just won it.
You know, I actually told Mike this. I said, you can't sail on yesterday's wind.
Exactly. You're exactly right, Gary.
You got to go again, man. You got to be ready. And now you have a target on your back. And so people
bigger target. That's what I used to do. I had a young kid that worked with me. He was 12 years old. He was number 2 in the country in boxing. And I asked him what happened, why he didn't become number 1. And he told me he got tired. So I told him that day, I said, I'm going to push your cardio now. So me and him was training, we sparred. This kid was sparring with grown men, and he was nice. And I said to him, I said, his dad goes, Ben, he's not understanding what's happened to him. I said, listen, you may be number 2, but now you got the biggest target on your back because you beat out 3 or 4 other guys that want your spot. You want the number 1 spot. You don't think the number 1 guy went home to train even harder because you came that close to almost beating him? I said, so now you got to get just as hungry and want it even more to face him again. But that's where a lot of guys go wrong too. If you beat me, we're going to fight again. But I tell people, I don't fight the same the next time. I fight everybody different. If we fought once, I would not fight you the same way, even if I beat you. Mm-hmm. If you fight me the second time, I'm going to come with a different style at you. And that was the advantage I had over a lot of guys because I got to train with 10 different world champions. Different looks every time.
So you know, I know you a little bit, right? And we're hearing you tonight. I think anybody who's hearing this is going to get the same vibe. You're definitely in kickboxing, especially. You were a very self-motivated guy. You had the discipline, you had the hunger, you had the drive. Since you've been a coach and since you've been working with so many people over the years, 2 questions. 1, have you appreciated much more the uniqueness of the drive that you had? And 2, how do you coach young men and women who don't have that same drive to get to that same kind of level?
Good question. Very good question. First, yes, I sometimes sit back at what I did. Like I can use Omar for example. I've been training him 15 going on 16 years. And when he met me, I had just retired. So when he was sparring me, I was doing things to him that he wasn't ready for, none of the guys. So he was like, how do I get to that level? I said, I'm going to show it to you every day. We're going to drill it and drill it. I said, it may get monotonous. I said, but when you spar me, I want you to try it on me. You got to have the confidence. I can show you everything in the world. Don't mean you can use it. You got to try it in your sparring session. And if it's to get your cardio up or push somebody, you got to push them. So if they tell me they can do 2 miles, I'm like, all right, time it. Now you're doing it. Say we just use an example. They're doing 15 minutes. Beat that by another minute. Now once you do that, now move it to 3 miles, 2.5 miles. Let's see you beat that. Now once they do that, you see their confidence start coming up. Mm-hmm. Once you get a hold of their confidence and you got them up there, the hardest thing I find is keeping people in their confidence. With everything going on in the world, a lot of people confidence go down. And it's like, this is where you got to stay humble and keep pushing forward. Know that on the other side, that big picture's coming. That big fight, that big fight is coming where you never know when it's going to pop up. And for me, fighting, I got thrown in one of the biggest shows. I was on my first pro fight. I was on with some of the top world champs. I opened up the show. I was nervous as hell in front of 5,000 people fighting. I was like, holy cow, this is crazy. And the second question you asked, how do you motivate people? I tell them, how I try to motivate, I try to make it fun. I try to make it fun. I always tell people, go in there and have fun. People used to look at me and all my friends and go, why are you telling them to go in there and have fun? He's about to get punched in the face. Some people race cars. Some people skydive. Some people ski. Some people do. Everybody got their niche. Some people read books. Whatever that inspires you and give you that drive and that adrenaline. Adrenaline it's a drug. I tell people, it's just like a drug. It can be dangerous. Adrenaline with anger is real dangerous. I tell people, I have a saying to myself that I used to say all the time. I call it control rage. You got to learn how to control that anger.
Yeah.
And stay calm. I had commentators, I had other coaches. People used to say to me all the time, how are you so calm in there when somebody's kicking you in your face? Like, dude, they don't rattle you. I said, because I went through it already in my years of training. I've been beat up, done this, done. And I used to say it in my head sometimes, you ain't gonna do nothing to me that ain't been done to me already. You gonna drop me? I've been dropped. So some of these fighters, and even just, not even just fighters, just people, they gotta be able to like look in the mirror sometime and really look at themselves and face their own fears and then work through it. That's what, as being a coach, my job is to help them face some fears.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
whatever it takes, we'll do it.
It seems like your biggest thing is, especially as far as evolving your game, is just the fear of complacency, and how complacency is really just breeds bad habits.
Yes,
and how like you were always saying, like, oh, you did 2 miles, do 3. You did 15 minutes, let's do 16 minutes. It's always just hit the milestone, set a new one. Hit the milestone, set a new one. Is that something that had to be kind of drilled into you, or was that just always your natural reaction? And how do you tell kids who don't think that there is that next wall to climb over, like, how do they recognize it? Because a lot of times you sit there and you tell a kid, go to that next level, and they struggle to see what that next level can be.
Well, that's a good question. Sometimes, like, people think they hit their plateau. You'll know when you hit your plateau, because you'll have nothing else in the tank. You'll drop. I did it twice where I hit it, and it was like, sometimes, like I tell these guys, you can overtrain. But what you said is very true. A lot of times it's hard to tell a kid to go do something if you never did. And nowadays age, they look at you like, can you do it? Me, I tell them I already been there, done that. But if I'm training, if I was saying, for example, if I was training you and we doing push-ups and you can only do 10, I'm gonna do 10 with you. But then I'm gonna do one more. I'm like, yo, you got one more in you. And if I'm down there with you and I'm doing it, you're gonna at least try. I would tell you to try. But I always gave you the positive note also. Listen, you could get that extra one. I want you to do this every morning. I just told it to a kid today. I said, I want you to go home and do 2 push-ups every night in the morning when you get out of bed, because that's what my cousin made me do. He goes, do 2 push-ups every night in the morning. He goes, when you can get it to 5 to 10, I got it to like 25 every night in the morning when I was getting up out of bed. Then when I was a pro, I was doing 50 every night. As soon as I get out of bed, I was on the floor doing 50 push-ups. I rarely lifted weights. I lifted weights since I was 12 all the way up to about 18. Then I stopped when I was in college. I didn't lift weights no more. I just stuck with training and a lot of cardio and stuff.
So it sounds like the message, that you're saying here, right, is one, something that I preach all the time, is do a lot instead of doing a little, right? Don't be complacent. And the supreme thing you have is confidence. And I totally believe that confidence only comes from knowing that you've done all you can do and you put in the work.
Yep.
Once you have that done, you can be confident. And and Travis, this is both of us, one of my favorite movies or anything of any time is Pumping Iron, the Arnold Schwarzenegger documentary.
Oh yeah, I remember that movie. I remember that movie came out, everybody running outside I was trying to lift weights.
But the best part of it is there's a sequence in there to show how confident Arnold Schwarzenegger was and I'm not going to go the whole thing, but basically this guy is saying, I'm going to train with Lou Ferrigno. I'm going to tell him all your secrets. I'm going to tell him all your things. And Arnold's just very, cocky about it. He's like, oh, tell him whatever you want to tell him. That's fine. And the guy says to him, remember, Arnold. And you guys actually have this in Champs on the wall. And it says, the lion climbing the mountain is hungrier than the lion on top of the mountain.
Yep.
When you're supremely confident like Arnold looked at him and said, yeah, he may be hungrier, but when I want the food, it's there. Like
exactly.
Because he knew he put the work in. He'd been a 7-time world champion. He knew that no one ever outworked him. No one posed better than him. And that's when you can have that confidence. And that's kind of like the same thing you had, because you were in with fighters since you were 12 years old. You had the best fighters. You were fighting men. That confidence is there. And that's what these young people need to put the same work in.
Yes, they definitely. If they was to put that work in, I just say that to the guys all the time. Yo, stay steady. Come and be consistent. Put the work in. You're going to have some off days. Those are the days that you should be relinquished and go after more than anything. It's not when you, like I told guys, anybody can look like a golden boy the first 2 rounds. I said, a fight really starts, if you're doing 6 rounds, it's that 4th and 5th and 6th round. And it's usually the last minute of each round is when the fight really gets gritty. It's not in the beginning. Anybody can look golden. It's like, you got to understand that what you put that hard work in, the fight is easy. You did the hard work. This kid is whoever, they ain't going to show you nothing that you seen. If you playing soccer, they ain't going to show you nothing that you ain't seen. You did the running. You did this. Football, you did the work.
And if you can really, truly grasp that, then the pressure is off.
Yes.
You can't control the outcome anyway. Right?
No.
So the pressure comes off at that point. That's a hard thing for people to grasp. But once you can, it's amazing how free you are with it. Someone said to me the other day, sorry, Trev. He said the probability of the outcome increases when you surrender the need to have that outcome. Yeah, I thought that made so much sense to me, but it's hard to distill that into people. You have to keep drilling into them over and over again. Sorry, Trev.
Well, I was just going to say, you were talking about how your biggest drive was your first fight, which you lost. And the biggest fear you see with especially these young kids, and talking, from 2 wrestling coaches in that one-on-one type of sport, is their willingness to be unsuccessful, or their willingness to take a risk that might not lose them the match, but it might lose them 2 points. Or might lose them a strike in the face or something like that. That willingness to be vulnerable. And then achieve directly following that vulnerability or directly following that negative is that it's okay to get scored on. It's okay to make that mistake, because the second that you embrace that, you can flip it.
Yes.
There's something that a lot of young kids don't understand about being able to flip it and being able to let yourself start to lose or start to score on in order to open up certain opportunities. So if you could just kind of talk about that and your perspective on that.
It's exactly what you just said. A lot of times I tell guys that, like, listen, you may be doing what you're going to do to somebody, and then they start, I said, especially the fight game. The fight game is a whole different. If you got a real high level 2 elite fighters in front of each other, the fight's going to go back and forth all night. It's going to be who pushes their will on the other person. Or let's capitalize on the mistake that he make. I get hit sometime, and I always tell anybody in the gym, don't throw the same thing on me twice. I already played it back in my head. So when you get to that elite level, guys see things and react to things a lot different than when they coming up in the, like, learning it. If you find a competitor that grasps that real quick, that's that person that is gonna go to that elite level quick, because they can process whatever happened to them quick and early, and like you said, let it go and then move forward. Perfect example, like my good friend Glover. We talk all the time. Glover right now is positioned himself to possibly fight for the world title again in the UFC. I trained with him for years. When I finished kickboxing, me and him was training together. I taught him kickboxing, and he was teaching me more ground. But me and him talk a lot. And he said the same thing. Because we talk, what I love about him, he sit down, he talk to all his guys, and I'm right there when he talk. We talk about the past, how I challenged him when I first trained him. I wanted to see how bad he really wanted it. I told him, I said, meet me at Hat City Boxing at 5 o'clock in the morning. That's how you see if somebody really hungry, if they want something. And when he did, he started grasping stuff quick. And I told my son when I went home, I said, yo, this kid's going to be a beast. He's going to be a monster. I said, this dude's picking up so quick. Because when you show somebody something, you can show 3 people the same thing. They're not going to all get it at the same time. But you can start deciphering who's going to elevate a little faster than who. Don't mean that that person that's down the bottom won't be a successful champion. Might take him a little longer. Some of these guys are natural athletes, some are not. Some, like I tell people, I'd rather take a dude that's a hard worker, that's picking up gradually, than sometimes having that natural ability, because those guys got that God-given talent and they don't put in the work.
Yeah.
That's a bad mistake that any athlete that's out here, that's where you see the difference with the real elite athletes, baseball, football. The real elite puts in the work still.
Yeah.
And they know when they, like you said, make themselves vulnerable. They know when they make a mistake, they can't sit there and just keep dwelling on it. They try to correct the mistake and move forward with it.
Yeah.
That's where you have your coaches. If you was my coach and I messed up or something, I'm going to go to you. I'm like, coach, I know I messed up right here. Once this match is over, we'll talk about it. What I did wrong, what we can adjust. We'll go back and watch the tape. That's why I took what I did in football, the same in fighting. I watch tapes on everybody. That's what me and Dave do. I study every fighter, from MMA to boxing to kickboxing. Guys always calling, yo, this is my fighter. Send them to me. I study people. I can pick someone apart quickly. I start looking at, like I said, I don't look at their bad habits so much. I look at their good habits. Good habits is little things that they do that they don't even know they're doing, and their coach ain't even looking at that. They just see they doing it good. But there's always flaws in what we do good. There's always, for fighting, I might hit you with a beautiful jab, but I might be just lifting my right arm just a little bit to open up the middle for a body shot or a 3/4 shot up the middle. So these are the things I look for. Yeah, he's got a beautiful jab, but he's not bringing it back fast enough. He's not doing this.
Well, a lot of times you can almost say that the things that someone does well is when they're most relaxed.
Yes.
So you might not be able to find the one bad thing they're doing along with the thing they're doing well, but because they're so relaxed when they're doing that perfect jab that they think they do 100%, that there's a perfect counter to it.
Exactly.
That they're not anticipating, because they're thinking, I'm doing my perfect thing right now.
Yep.
Nothing can go wrong. But if you're, like you say, if you're studying that one perfect thing, there's always another move. There's always the next revolution to it.
That is, you're 100% right on that. You're definitely 100% right. And that's where a lot of fighters and even any competitor do wrong. I was just watching something with these kids. They play one-on-one football. Like this dude, they challenge each other. Well, like catching receivers and defenders. This one kid kept saying, he goes, I'm going to break him to the left. And he keep trying to cut me off. Watch this. And he did it. And he broke on the kid the other way and left him. Because he picked up on what the kid was beating him to the spot. So he knew he had to get to the other side. And he told his coach goes, yo, good one. And I was like, wow, this kid picked up that fast. And within seconds, knew what this kid was going to do. And sometimes it's your intuition. You gotta go with your intuition, your gut feeling. You know it. I always tell people, you know in your gut, it feels right. It is right. Go for it. What you got to lose? What you got to lose? Because if you're already losing right now, you got nothing to lose.
Absolutely. So you touched, before you mentioned that you you said something, I see it in my head when you make a mistake, whatever. Back, you retired 15 or so years ago. And back then, there wasn't as much of the mental game. I mean, it was important, but it wasn't much of the mental training as we have now for athletes. Did you do things like visualization? Did you do those type of things?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. It's funny because I used to tell my coach, I got scared. I say one real fight, I got really scared. And my coach go, what's the matter? Because I used to have a dream I would get knocked out every fight. And I would wake up mad as hell, like, ain't nobody knocking me out. And my coach goes, you had your dream? I said, yeah. This time, I didn't have the dream. I didn't get butterflies. I didn't get the jitters. And I'm like, yo, Dad, I'm kind of nervous. He goes, why? What's the matter? I said, I ain't had the dream. I'm not nervous. I'm not nothing. He goes, Ben, you're already 8 years into fighting. And my song, what I used to come out to was DMX. It was the same old thing, different day. And that's how I took it. I put in the work. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do every day. So in my head, I would go in the ring. I would visualize, if this dude throw a jab, I got to counter for this. He throw this, I got to counter for that. I already, in my head, I'm like playing chess with myself. Like, no matter what he throw at me, I got counted for it. But why do I wait for him to throw? Let me throw on him first and make him react to me. That's what I told myself. Yeah. And that made me a whole different fighter from most of the guys I was fighting. Plus, I had better boxing skill than a lot of the guys out there. I wasn't stupid. I watched a lot of the guys in kickboxing back in the day came out from a background like me, karate. But there was a handful that had boxing skills. Mm-hmm. So I concentrated. My weakness was my boxing. That's why I concentrated more. I'm a natural kicker, but I can box. Like I said, I boxed at 5 years old. I stopped, and then my friend brought me back in the boxing gym about 19 years old. And I was just boxing. I was boxing all the golden gloves. And they were beating me up every day. But I learned a lot, and then I started giving it back to them.
So I know you're training a lot of boxers now. And are you still training kickboxers as well? Or?
Oh yeah, kickboxers, MMA fighters, all like kickboxing. Like I explained to guys, I was telling the young boys yesterday in the ring when I was showing them some boxing skills, like when they're in the corner of their trap. I said the major difference with kickboxing and boxing. I said kickboxing, we have to respect person range. I said you guys. I said I can be 5-6 feet away from you. I could drop my hand and I ain't worried about you. Kickboxing, I said one step and the kick is in your head, because people know how to slide with their kicks. They know how to close that distance on you real fast with their legs. I was one of those persons because that came from my point tournament background. Quick getting in, getting out quick. So I try to explain to these guys, I said, so that's why sometimes I can do some things to you guys in this ring that y'all not used to, because I'm used to getting in, get out, pick an angle, move, and pivot around you. I said, you guys are standing in front of me and want to bang. I said, I don't want to bang. I said, I can, but I said, boxing ain't always about banging. It's about using intelligence, fighting smart.
Yeah.
I said, if you're a boxer, I'm going to brawl with you a little bit. Then I'm going to go back to boxing. You come within, you do that consistently in the fight. The same thing I told Mike in the fight. I said, there's going to be times you're going to brawl. There's going to be times you're going to box. You're going to be going back and forth, in and out of that. I said, but if you only one-sided, you just want to brawl, you're going to get beat up by a lot of boxers. If you're a boxer and you're afraid to brawl, you're going to get beat up. So you got to know when to come in and out of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that was talking a little more, in match game planning. Do you have any advice to younger kids, especially about their larger goal setting? It seems like a lot of your goal setting is driven just from your personal drive and just the hunger that you have. But maybe to people who are teaching themselves that hunger or teaching themselves how to realize what their goals are right in front of them or in the near future, long future, can you talk about maybe how young kids should analyze, assess, and establish those goals?
Yes, definitely. First thing first, any young person watching, listening, whatever, the smartest thing you could do is set your big goal and then take little goals each step. So if your goal is to be world champion fighting or best running back in NFL, whatever it is, that's your ultimate goal. How are you going to go about starting your day to start to reach that goal? Are you going to go run your 5 miles, 3 miles, 2 miles? If it's a mile, it's a mile. And that goes back to like what I said before. Put that pace out there. Then the next goal, you beat that goal. You go to the next one. Then by the end of the year, you look at where you at. And you assess yourself like, wow, I'm this far because I put in this work. Before you know it, positive success breeds success. More positive people will come around you, more successful. They're going to start giving you shorter cuts than what you do. That's what I found out training with 10 world champions. they started giving me different ways of doing things. Instead of me, okay, Ben, you running your 5 miles. My coach was like, all right, put some sprints in there. Cut the 5 miles down, do 3 and do some sprints. Do like 10, 50-yard sprints. Okay. And then he said something to me that made sense. He goes, Ben, when you fight in spurts, right? He goes, so which is better, running 5 miles or running the sprints?
Exactly.
And I said, hold up. Oh, my goodness. I said, the sprints. I need the sprints more. He goes, so set your goals for your sprints. So I started doing that. He goes, all right, you're going to do 5-round fight. How many sprints you going to do? And I would do that to myself. And personally, running, I used to do that when I used to run 5 miles. If I ran, like, say, from here to a store and I ran to a telephone pole, I would say in my head, I always thought about fighting. The first round just started. That's what I used to say to myself. And I'll be shadow boxing while I'm running. Then I'll be like, hey, the kid picked up the round on you. You got to pick up the round. And I start running faster. And I would get to the next telephone pole and I'll slow down and just jog. All right, that round's over. You're in the corner. Your coach is talking to you. I used to talk to myself and like inspire myself. So I'll tell some of these kids out here, don't be afraid, even though people think you're crazy out here. Motivate yourself. Act like you're running against Carl Lewis. Carl Lewis just left me 3 miles. I got to catch him. In reality, you got to have that imaginary, that an elite athlete ahead of you to push you. But you got to set your goals and write them down. Write them down. See what you're doing for that day. You'll see if your performance increasing daily by what you're doing. But also, you can't, I tell people, don't slack on yourself, because you're the only person gonna know. You know you better than you. I tell people that all the time. You know yourself better than anybody. I can tell you, do this, do that, do this. But you might give me your 50% right there. And deep down, you know you have another 50 in you. Yep. And you don't push yourself.
You got to be able to look at the man in the mirror at the end of the day.
Yes.
I give 100%. And one of the hardest things for a lot of people do is to be honest with themselves, because it's easy to cheat yourself because no one knows but you.
Yep.
But I love your advice about goals, and I talk to people I work with all the time. Set that big goal. Don't be afraid of it. It should be something that people will almost laugh at, right? It's something that's
of course.
And make sure that all your other goals, your smaller goals, make sure they all
are attainable with
that.
Yeah.
You want to live your life in alignment with that big goal.
Exactly.
And the last thing I'm gonna tell you before I ask your question is, you definitely dated yourself with the Carl Lewis reference, because a lot of young kids here don't know who Carl Lewis is. But just for you people who don't know, Carl Lewis was very, very fast. Very, very fast. I don't remember the Eddie Murphy skit?
I knew he was, and I knew that I barely knew who he was.
Hey, Benny, do you remember the Eddie Murphy skit when he used to go, I'm Carl Lewis, I'm very fast.
Yep.
Very fast.
Look,
so you definitely dated us there, man.
That's funny.
Hey, so we'll start wrapping this up. Here's one of my last questions. You've been in the fight game for 30 plus years. Anybody who's listening to this knows you have a passion for it. If someone's listening to this who's never been in a boxing gym, never did kickboxing, never did MMA, what's the one thing you would tell them that if they come to a gym, if they do get involved in this, whether it's to pursue a championship or whether it's to just kind of be part of what they do in their lifestyle, what's the number one thing that you feel they can take away from that to be a better person? From
the one thing is have fun with it, enjoy it. Like, you got to enjoy what you're doing. If I was to come in, if I never like box, like I played sports, but if you were to take me, like I played golf one time with my dad. I didn't like it, but I like miniature golf. But don't get me wrong, 2 of my friends want to teach me how to like drive. I'm eager to learn that. If I get on that, my competitive drive gonna take over. So I could be hitting the ball left, right. It could be all over the place. I might not even hit the ball. I'll get mad and I'll stay out there all day until I hit it. Yeah. So if your goal is to drop weight, I tell people, don't even focus on dropping weight. Just go in there and train. It'll come off. If you want to be the world champion, I tell every fighter to tell me they want to be world champion. Just tell me once. That's it. You don't have to tell me twice. I heard you the first time. Now, go write it on your wall, put it on your wall, keep it in front of you. I did that. I put stuff on my wall. I looked at it every morning I got up. I'm being a world champ. I'm going to train. What am I going to do today to do that? I'm going to go running. Yeah. And the days when I didn't feel like running or getting up, I pushed myself to get up to run. Because it's something I always said when, for these young kids that want to go out here and do great and be like the next LeBron James. LeBron James was gifted, but understand there's kids out there that probably just as better than him right now that you never hear about because they're putting in that work. The days that you don't see them, they're working. And that's what you got to do. When you're tired, you got to just get up and push yourself. Even if, okay, you don't want to do an hour, do a half hour. But in that half hour, give it your all. Give it your all. Walk out of that gym, whether it's just to do cardio or you're going to spar 6 rounds and you can only do 2-3 rounds, give it your best 3 rounds. Don't give me 6 BS rounds. I'd rather have 3 good, efficient rounds and tell you that's it, you're done for the day. To just sit there and watch you go through 6 rounds not doing nothing, getting beat up. That don't help you.
The other thing that I would just add to, like, being around wrestling and coaching it for years and the similarity between boxing is, as a person, you always want to test your mettle, right? You want to test yourself. You want to push yourself to the limits, or at least that's what someone who's living a real full life wants to push themselves. So I always encourage young kids to try these individual sports that are highly competitive, like wrestling and boxing, because nowhere else are you going to push yourself that same way.
Exactly.
And so, again, I love basketball. I love football. I love a lot of sports. My boys both play lacrosse. I love the sport. But they'll both tell you there's something unique about the one-on-one, the combat sports are just.
Yes, it's like my whole family wrestled. I wanted to wrestle. Like I told you before, I said, I wanted to wrestle, but I didn't like wearing that one piece.
You went to Danbury and you didn't wrestle?
Yep. My whole family wrestled. I wrestled with my cousins and them, but I didn't wrestle. I didn't want to wrestle. I played football and basketball and did karate in that box. But like you said, these guys got to understand that, and ladies, that if you want something, go after it.
Yep.
Go after it. Like, by all means, go after it. But go after it with a positive intent.
You were saying that you did do a lot of team sports. We're talking a lot about the self-motivation, but I want to really, before we close up, I want to touch on the accountability of being a teammate, because even in our individual sports, you need a practice partner, right? You need a training partner.
Yes.
When you get into team sports, talking basketball, the soccer players, the football players, holding your teammates accountable so that you can, as a group, achieve a certain goal. Where do you stand on the ability to be open and raw with someone who you consider a teammate or on the same level? And how do you approach speaking to someone that you consider a peer in that respect? Because sometimes you got to be hard on people, and sometimes these young kids, they, especially high schoolers, they'll be like, oh yeah, we want to be state champs. And you got 4 kids working to be state champs and everyone else working to, just get through practice.
Yeah. I try my best not to put anyone down, because I always said to myself, who am I to put someone down? Because I didn't like when somebody did it to me. So I always told myself, be humble, stay humble, and try to give the kids positives about what they're doing. So if I see that one kid, like you just said, for example, you got 4 kids pushing their butt off, and then the other one just want to get through practice, I would tell those guys, you guys are getting mad at these 4 guys because they're doing their work. But if you notice, when there's competition, I said, look at these guys' record, what they're doing. They're putting in the work. You could do the same thing they doing if you put in the work. I got 4 kids right now. I'm doing the same thing. These kids worked today. They did 6 rounds sparring at 200 push-ups. They just did everything I told them. And I told them, I said, over the time, you're going to thank me for what I pushed you with. I said, so, sometimes trying to talk to someone that's on your same level, you do have to take a half step back. And you got to look at what's going on with them. Because you don't know what's going on with anybody. Like I don't know what's going on with yours. You don't know what's going on with mine. But when we there on that mat, we're family. If something, I always tell guys, my door's always open. If something bothers you, come talk to me. A lot of kids talk to me about everything. Sometimes you don't know. It might be girlfriend, anything, money, bills, whatever. Car accident, you never know. Sometimes people get in that funk, they don't want to train. They don't want to do nothing. And you can see it. So you got to try to find a way to motivate them. Like me, I'll joke around with them. I'll play around like, yo, I'll tell them they're going to spar me today. They get excited when they spar me because I know they want to beat me up. So I tell them I'm going to be on my A game, so you better watch out. So once they start training and they forget about whatever was bothering them, then they talk to me and they tell me what's going on.
Yeah.
That's one way where I try to get something out of people. But I always tell people, one thing that stuck with me, I think the most out of my whole life of training, and it was something my godfather said to me. And he taught me the biggest lesson. And to this day, I tell everybody, he said, keep an open mind. You never know when someone's going to show you something that you might need or use. And I took that to heart.
Yeah, that's great advice. It's great advice. So we have one last question that we ask everybody, and it's kind of like the lighthearted question of the night. And that is, either when you were a competitor or now, doesn't make a difference. Everybody, every athlete's got a backpack or a gym bag or whatever. And our question is, what's the most unusual or interesting thing that you had to have like in your bag with you before competition, or even now when you go in to train people?
In my bag?
Yeah.
Now,
everybody's got something.
When I was fighting, I used to I had a pair of shorts. Like everybody got their lucky shorts, their lucky socks or something. You got to have something that somebody gave you.
Right.
When I was fighting, I had a pair of MMA shorts that Glover gave me. Now it's like, I would say it's tape.
Tape.
It's tape. I mostly have tape, but as I got older, I ain't gonna lie. Don't tell everybody this now. It's the BioFreeze. That's my best friend. As you get older, you start feeling all the pains. Like guys be asking me like, yo, you all right, coach? I'm like, yeah, But that's something like, that's personal, like little things that you have in there. But like I said, when I was fighting, I had a pair of shorts that I always wore.
All right.
That's good. That's a good answer. Yeah, and believe me,
that's fine, because the champ just last week told us that he's always has his massager on, so that's the same thing.
Yeah, you got to have something with you that sometimes it gives you that comfort.
Yeah,
you need that comfort. Like you might have your baseball hat, your favorite hat that you wear. I have a favorite hat that I wear, or socks or something.
Yeah,
it's something that someone gave to you that have value to you and that person. Whether they're a fighter or they're a competitor, that person might have been a mediocre competitor. Like say you wrestle. What if one of the top wrestlers in the world gave you a pair of his shoes? You would wear them things till it ripped off, but you might hold a piece of it with you everywhere you go.
Yeah.
Just to remind you the level that you were at. This guy gave you a high reference. My coach was the middleweight champ of the world. And he gave me a lot of advice, but he also gave me a pair of gloves because me and him was getting it in one day, and I hit him and I punched him real hard in his face, and he was like, "I felt your knuckle," and he gave me a brand new set of gloves. But my old gloves, he goes, "Don't you use those on anybody ever again." He goes, "You use those on the bag," and I was looking at him, I was like, "But these gloves hit him. I'm keeping these gloves." I had them gloves. Somebody I think my son used my gloves and lost them, but I had them gloves for years. They was white. When I finished with them, they was gray and brown. They had no color on them. And people were like, "Yo, why you still got those gloves?" I said, "Shut up. They got meaning, man. They got meaning." But in the bag, you're going to always have that little like comfort for yourself that give you that inspiration. Sometimes it might be, like I said, might be me, it was my pair of shorts. I would look at those shorts and I'm like, yeah, I'm ready to get it in now. It amped me up. It got me. Sometimes it's music.
Right. And sometimes we hold those things because it's familiar and it's comfort.
Yes.
And when we're facing something as great as fear, right? Because there's always fear. It's the one thing that brings you kind of back to it's common. It's something I feel comfortable with. So that's a great answer, Benny.
It gives you that confidence that you're looking for. Yeah. It brings that confidence out of you.
You gotta be confident, man.
Need the juice.
Definitely.
listen, we appreciate having you on here tonight.
Oh,
man.
thank you guys.
Really good juice. Tell the people how to, you know, follow you on social media or how to get a hold of you if they want to learn from you or whatever.
Well, you could come down to Champs Boxing at 128 East Liberty Street if you want to learn boxing, kickboxing, MMA. Or you can hit me up on, I'm on Instagram, Benny Little. I'm on there too. No, most of the time, if you just come down to Champs, that's where I'm at. I pretty much live here. I work and then I come here.
Well, we'll drop that information in the show notes, and
definitely
I'll be sure I'll be coming down to Champs.
Oh, definitely, we'll see you.
Yeah.
Thank you guys.
All right, Benny, thanks so much, man. Appreciate it. Have a great night, pal.
You too. All
right, bye.
Bye.